What if the anger you carry isn't yours alone, but an inheritance passed from one wound to another? What if the only way to end the cycle is not to fight harder, but to feel deeper? In this story, we're not here to judge hatred, but to understand why it survives, and more importantly, how compassion ends what punishment cannot. Welcome to Trandy Wisdom, where every story is a truth waiting to be heard. 1. Recognizing the fire within. The nature of hatred. When we are hurt, the wound is not only on the surface, it goes deep into the heart, into the storehouse of our consciousness. A harsh word, a betrayal, an act of violence. These things plant seeds of suffering inside us. If we are not careful, if we are not mindful, these seeds will take root and grow into something fierce. Anger, resentment, and hatred. Hatred isn't born out of nowhere. It is the continuation of pain unrecognized, pain that hasn't been embraced. When someone harms us, our first instinct may be to fight back, to make them feel what we felt. We think that if the other person suffers, we will be relieved. But hatred is a fire. It does not only burn the other, it burns us first. When we carry hatred, we carry heat, tension, contraction. Our body tightens, our breath shortens, our mind narrows. We become prisoners of our own suffering. The Buddha, in his great compassion, offered us a very simple yet profound teaching. Hatred is never appeased by hatred. Hatred is only appeased by love. This is an eternal law. These aren't merely poetic words. They are a key to our freedom. They are an invitation to look deeply and to see clearly. If we respond to hatred with more hatred, if we answer a slap with another slap, what is the result? The pain grows, the wound deepens, and the chain of suffering is strengthened. But if we can stop, if we can breathe and look deeply, we have a chance to transform. The fire of hatred often disguises itself as justice. We believe we are right to hate, that our pain is valid, and that retaliation is the path to balance. But true justice does not come from revenge. It comes from understanding. If we can understand the suffering of the one who hurt us, even a little, our hatred begins to soften. This doesn't mean we condone their actions. It means we are choosing not to add more suffering to the world. We are choosing to become a part of the solution, not the continuation of the problem. There is a story of a village that caught fire. One house after another was burning. The villagers ran around throwing fire into each other's homes, thinking they were protecting their own. But the more they threw, the more the flames spread. Eventually, everything was lost. This is what happens when we meet hatred with hatred. It is like throwing fire at fire, hoping for rain. Hatred has its own momentum. When we feed it, even with our thoughts, it grows stronger. It creates divisions. It builds walls. It tells us stories about who is right and who is wrong, who deserves love and who deserves punishment. It separates us from each other and from our true nature, which is understanding and compassion. When we recognize this fire within us, we do not need to be afraid. We do not need to suppress it or pretend it is not there. We simply need to turn toward it with awareness. Mindfulness is the water that cools the flame. When we breathe with awareness, we create space between the stimulus and our reaction. We can see the anger, feel it in our body, hear its voice in our mind, and simply acknowledge, "Hello, my old friend, I see you." That seeing is already a miracle. Many of us are not taught how to take care of anger. We are taught to avoid it or express it blindly. But in the practice of mindfulness, we learn a third way: to recognize, embrace, and transform. The anger becomes an object of meditation. It becomes a bell of mindfulness, calling us back to ourselves. Instead of blaming, we begin to inquire, What pain has not been healed? What fear has not been seen? What longing has been ignored? When we understand that hatred is not our enemy, but our teacher, something in us shifts. Hatred is a signal that something in us needs care. It is a cry from within asking for attention. We can hold it like a crying child, not to indulge it, not to feed it, but to soothe it with our presence. Sometimes we think love is something we give only to those who deserve it. But in the path of the Buddha, love is not a transaction. It is a way of being. It is the light that shines in all directions, even into the dark corners of our consciousness. Love says, I see your suffering. I see that you are hurting, and I do not wish to hurt you back. I want to stop the cycle here. With me, this does not mean we allow harm to continue. It does not mean we stay silent in the face of injustice. It means we respond with clarity, with steadiness, with compassion, not with hatred. We protect ourselves and others, not by becoming hardened, but by becoming more awake. The strongest warrior is not the one who strikes the hardest, but the one who refuses to strike from a place of hatred. In the practice of deep looking, we also see that the person who harmed us is not different from us. They, too, carry pain. They, too, were once a child. Perhaps no one taught them how to handle their suffering. Perhaps they are drowning in their own wounds. When we see this, compassion arises naturally, and when compassion is there, hatred cannot remain. There is a deep peace that comes when we choose not to hate. It is a peace that the world cannot give us, because it comes from within. It is not dependent on anyone else changing. It is the fruit of our own awakening. Let us learn to recognize the fire of hatred, not with judgment, but with gentleness. Let us breathe with it, smile to it, and take care of it as we would a dear friend. When we do this, we are no longer victims of hatred. We become vessels of understanding, messengers of peace, and even in the presence of great suffering, we carry within us the seed of healing for ourselves and for the world. 2. Breathing with anger, holding hatred with mindfulness and compassion. Anger is not an enemy to be destroyed. It is a wounded child crying out for care. In our everyday life, we often suppress our anger or allow it to explode outward, harming ourselves and those around us. But the teachings of mindfulness offer a third way, a path of deep listening, loving awareness, and healing. When we learn to breathe with our anger, we are no longer controlled by it. We become its teacher, its friend, its healer. When anger arises in us, it can be very powerful. It comes like a storm, sudden, loud, and overwhelming. The body heats up, the breath becomes shallow, the voice sharpens, the mind spins with stories about injustice, betrayal, or disrespect. These are real sensations, real thoughts, and real emotions, but we are not helpless in the face of them. The Buddha taught that with mindfulness, we can embrace anger, not as an enemy, but as a part of us that is suffering and needs our attention. The first step is to stop, to not say anything, not act, not react, just stop. This stopping is not repression. It is protection. It is the beginning of care. When we stop and bring our attention to the breath, we are creating a safe space within ourselves. We take refuge in the rhythm of inhalation and exhalation. Breathing in, I know I am angry. Breathing out, I calm my body. We do not try to push the anger away. We do not judge it. We simply hold it in our awareness. As we would hold a fragile object or a trembling animal, we give it space to be seen. Many of us are afraid of anger. We are afraid that if we touch it, we will be consumed by it. But mindfulness is like the sun. It shines its light on the anger and helps us see it clearly. With the light of awareness, anger loses its power to control us. It becomes something we can study, understand, and care for. We can begin to ask ourselves, where did this anger come from? What wound is it pointing to? Is there fear beneath it? Is there sadness? Often, when we look deeply, we discover that anger is rooted in pain. Perhaps someone ignored us, dismissed us, or violated our boundaries. Perhaps something we care about deeply has been threatened. Anger arises to defend us, to protect us, but it often does so blindly. Without wisdom, if we are not careful, anger becomes aggression. It wants to strike, to hurt, to retaliate. But the teachings of compassion show us that there is another way. In Plum Village, we are taught to treat our anger as a baby. When a baby cries, we do not hit it. We do not throw it out the door. We pick it up, hold it, and try to understand what it needs. Our anger is the same. It is not bad. It is just in pain. It needs our tenderness, not our punishment. Breathing with anger is like holding that crying baby with care. We do not deny the crying. We do not silence it. We simply stay present and breathe. Sometimes, the breath alone is enough. Just 10 or 15 conscious breaths. Feeling the in-breath as it enters the body and the out-breath as it leaves. Breathing deeply into the belly. Feeling the chest rise and fall. With each breath, we return to the present moment. With each breath, we see to the anger. I see you. I am here for you. This is already healing. But sometimes, anger is strong and needs more than breath. It needs walking. Walking meditation is a powerful practice for transforming anger. Each step can be an anchor, a grounding force. We walk slowly, with full awareness of each foot touching the earth. Breathing in, I take a step. Breathing out, I know I am alive. We walk not to arrive anywhere, but to arrive in ourselves. As we walk with our anger, we allow the energy to settle, to release. The earth becomes our support, our witness, our teacher. Other times, we may need to write. Journaling with mindfulness can help us put our feelings into words. When anger is given a voice on the page, it softens. We can write without judgment, allowing the anger to speak honestly. Later, we can read what we wrote and begin to see patterns, insights, and perhaps even seeds of compassion. Another powerful practice is listening, first to ourselves, then to others. Deep listening is not easy when we are angry, but when we feel heard, our anger naturally diminishes. We can practice listening to our own pain with the ear of the heart. Dear anger, I know you are there. I will take care of you. In this way, anger feels held, not abandoned. Over time, it transforms. It may become clarity. It may become determination. It may even become love. In a relationship, anger can be a bridge rather than a wall, if we know how to use it. When we are hurt by someone we love, we can take time to breathe with our feelings before we speak. Then, with mindfulness, we can share. I felt hurt when you said those words. I would like to understand what was happening in you. This kind of communication is an offering, not an attack. It opens the door for healing rather than blame. But what if the anger is towards someone who truly harmed us? Someone who is not safe, not kind, not present? In these situations, the practice is still the same. We breathe with our anger, not to forgive blindly, but to protect ourselves from being poisoned by hate. We do not need to keep hatred alive in order to honor our pain. We can honor our pain with clarity and strength, while refusing to let it define our heart. Forgiveness isn't for them. It is for us. Breathing with anger is a lifelong practice. It is not a quick fix or a way to suppress emotion. It is a way to walk with ourselves gently, especially in our darkest hours. When we make a habit of returning to our breath, our anger becomes a teacher, not a tyrant. It shows us where we are still wounded. It invites us to care for ourselves more deeply, and in doing so, it invites us to care for the world. Thich Nhat Hanh often reminded us that the breath is always there for us. It is a bridge between body and mind, between chaos and calm. When we are caught in anger, the breath brings us home. We may not have all the answers. We may not find resolution right away, but in the space of one mindful breath, peace begins. That peace may be small, like the first raindrop before the storm ends, but it is real. It is the seed of transformation. When we practice this way, breathing, listening, embracing, we begin to touch the energy of non-hatred. This is not passive. It is deeply active. It takes strength, courage, and a willingness to see beyond appearances. Non-hatred is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of love, a love that sees clearly, speaks truth, and chooses not to harm. In a world so full of anger, to breathe with our own anger is a revolutionary act. To hold our hatred with compassion is a gift to ourselves and to all beings. We become a place of refuge. We become a living teaching, and even when the storm returns, as it surely will, we know that we have the tools to walk through it, not with fear, but with presence, grace, and deep understanding. 3. The power of non-hatred, a path to true healing. In the silence of the forest, the wind carries no anger. The tree does not hate the storm. Even as its branches break, it bends. It sways. It loses leaves, but it does not close its heart to the rain. There is a deep teaching in this image. In the face of hardship, we have the capacity not to hate. This is not a weakness. This is a profound strength, a strength that comes from understanding, from love, and from liberation. The Buddha called it the path of non-hatred, the only path that leads to true healing. We often believe that hatred makes us strong, that to hate is to resist, to protect what is precious, to guard our dignity. But this is a great misunderstanding. Hatred is a form of attachment, a deep clinging to our wound, to our story, to our view of who is wrong and who is right. In this clinging, we close the door to transformation. We become fixed, rigid, and unfree. Non-hatred is not passive acceptance. It is the active refusal to let our pain become a weapon. It is the courageous choice to open the heart, even while it is still aching. In the teachings of the Buddha, non-hatred is not merely the absence of hatred. It is a living energy, a conscious presence. It arises when we look deeply into the nature of suffering, and we see that to respond with more suffering only multiplies the pain. This is the law the Buddha spoke of. Hatred is never appeased by hatred. Hatred is only appeased by non-hatred. This is an eternal law. It means that the cycle of violence, the chain of vengeance, the back and forth of harm, these things can only stop when someone, somewhere, chooses to stop. That someone can be us. To walk the path of non-hatred is to walk with mindfulness, with compassion, and with deep listening. It means we do not allow hatred to define our speech, our action, or our intention. Even when we must speak out, even when we must stand up to injustice, we do so from a place of clarity, not reactivity. Non-hatred does not mean we approve of harm or remain silent in the face of wrongdoing. It means we act with the intention to heal, not to hurt. We act with the vision of interbeing, that no one is truly separate from us, and that harming another is ultimately harming ourselves. There is a story of a man who was beaten and robbed. Years passed, but he carried the memory like a stone in his heart. Every day, he recalled the face of his attacker. Every day, he fed the fire of resentment. Then one day, someone asked him, Why do you carry this man in your heart still, when he no longer carries you in his? In that moment, he understood. The true prison was not the pain of the past. It was the hatred he continued to nurture. Letting go was not forgetting. Letting go was freedom. Non-hatred is a liberation from this prison. It does not deny the hurt. It does not erase the wound. It simply refuses to keep cutting the same scar open again and again. To practice non-hatred is to water different seeds in our consciousness instead of watering the seeds of anger, blame, and bitterness. We water the seeds of understanding, empathy, and peace. This takes time, patience, and gentleness. It is like tending a garden after a storm. The soil may be torn, the flowers trampled, but with care, new life can bloom. Sometimes we believe that only the one who hurt us can heal us, that we need their apology, their regret, their change of heart. But true healing begins within. It begins the moment we stop waiting for someone else to make us whole, and we take our suffering into our own loving arms. Non-hatred is the embrace we give ourselves. It is the decision not to give our joy, our peace, or our freedom into the hands of someone who once caused us pain. It is the vow to live fully, not in reaction to the past, but in presence with what is. To practice non-hatred, we must also understand the roots of violence. No one is born to harm. Those who cause suffering are themselves victims of suffering. They may be overwhelmed by fear, ignorance, or a lack of love. This is not to excuse their actions, but to see them clearly. When we understand the suffering of another, we soften. Our heart begins to open. And in this opening, the possibility of true healing is born, not just for ourselves, but for the other and for the world. One time, I was walking with a student in the gardens of Plum Village. She had suffered greatly at the hands of a loved one, and her heart was full of anger. As we walked, she asked, "Why should I forgive? Why should I let go, when what happened was so wrong?" I did not answer her with words. I simply invited her to walk in silence, to feel the earth under her feet, the air in her lungs, the sunlight on her face. After a long time, she said, "I see now. My anger is like a rope around my neck. I've been holding it, thinking it was a sword." This is the insight of non-hatred. It reveals the ways we suffer because we are trying to protect ourselves with the very thing that is wounding us. In the practice of non-hatred, we come to see that true protection comes from love. When we are rooted in love, we are not so easily shaken. We do not need to prove anything, defend anything, or attack anyone. Love is spacious. It allows others to be human. It allows us to be human. It makes room for the possibility of change. And sometimes, that change begins when we simply stop fueling the conflict with our own bitterness. Non-hatred is also deeply connected to forgiveness. Forgiveness is not a performance. It is not a declaration. It is a slow process of releasing our grip on pain. Sometimes we forgive in layers. Sometimes we forgive silently, over and over again. Each time we choose peace instead of anger, kindness instead of revenge. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is the wisdom of seeing that hatred cannot serve us. It is the act of saying, "I want to be free." When we practice non-hatred in community, its power multiplies. A sangha, a spiritual family, can hold space for our transformation. In community, we learn to support one another, to listen deeply, and to share our joys and our pains. When a group of people chooses to practice non-hatred together, they become a healing force in the world. They become an embodiment of the Buddha's teaching, a living testimony to the power of love. The path of non-hatred is not without difficulty. There will be days when our anger returns, strong and loud. There will be moments when we want to close our heart again. This is natural. The practice is not to never feel anger, but to recognize it, hold it with care, and not act from it. Slowly, the energy of non-hatred becomes our refuge. It becomes the soil in which our compassion grows. When we live with non-hatred, we discover a deep peace, not the peace of avoiding conflict, but the peace of not being consumed by it. We walk with ease. We speak with gentleness. We look into the eyes of others and see not enemies, but fellow travelers, all seeking love, all carrying wounds. We become a healing presence in the world. The world does not need more hatred. It does not need more revenge. It needs people who can hold suffering with compassion, who can speak truth without violence, who can love without condition. This is the power of non-hatred. It is not just an ideal. It is a practice, a path, a way of being that changes everything it touches. To walk this path is to return to our true nature, to know that beneath the anger, beneath the story, beneath the hurt, there is still a heart capable of love. And when we touch that heart, when we live from that place, we become free, not because the world is perfect, but because we no longer let its imperfection dictate our capacity to love. This is true healing. This is the end of hatred, not in the world outside, but in the quiet center of our own being. Thank you for walking with us through this meditation on hatred, healing, and compassion. If even one person chooses to stop the cycle of anger, the world becomes a little lighter. That person can be you. At Trandy Wisdom, we believe that peace is not something we find outside. It is something we grow from within, breath by breath, step by step. Until next time, may your heart be soft, your breath be steady, and your path be guided by love.